Aloha, and thank you everyone for coming to our Zoom event today with Robert Barclay. So without further ado, I'm going to hand it over to Robert Barclay.
Okay, well, thank you. Thanks for coming. Welcome to my fake library in the background. I'm a professor of English at Windward Community College in Kaneohe on Oahu. And I started working there in 2004. And the professor I was taking over for was running the literary journal. So I took over that. And I basically taught myself how to do book production by doing that, just trial and error using various software programs. I took that knowledge and I created my own publishing company. You see the logo right here, Lo'ihi Press. And a few years ago, every year we would put out at the school our annual literary journal, the Pueo. And I decided we could probably accommodate some single author books as well. And no other campus in the system was doing this. So I started Pueo Press, and we've published several books through the college in this fashion. I'll show you a few of the books that I published with both presses. I published my own book. This is my last book, Bastard in the Wilderness. It just, I think I put it out in, was it December? No, January, I think. One of the first books I published with Lo'ihi Press was The Idea Man. This is written, it's I guess you would call it a young adult novel by Josh Green, who's now our Lieutenant Governor of Hawaii. Here's the last book we published at WCC. It's a murder mystery set in Hollywood, The Last Leg Woman. So we put this out through Pueo Press. Here's another Pueo Press. This is a nonfiction book. The author calls it a spiritual memoir, Can These Bones Dance, by Leilani Madison. Through Lo'ihi Press, I've also published, this is one of the books I'm really most proud of publishing. It's Free Love by Samoan author Sia Figuel. Here's another book I'm very proud to have published with Lo'ihi Press, In the Time Before Light by Ian McMillan. I published this posthumously. He was a professor of mine at Manoa. And last year, the year before, Honolulu Magazine came out with its 50 essential books about Hawaii. And two of the books that I've published actually made that list. This was one of them. There's a little book of short stories I wrote, I think it was 2009. Another novel I wrote. Another book, this was by a student, again, at Windward Community College, book of short stories. This is a book of art, of Hawaiian art, Hawaiian artist. Pueo Press, I published this book of poetry by a student, Blood, Sweat, and Breast Milk by Ashley Nakanishi. UH Hilo professor Mark Panic, I published his novel, Hawaii. This was also one of the 50 essential books about Hawaii, according to Honolulu Magazine. Here's one of our Pueo literary journals we do at Windward. We even published last year a science textbook. We had it peer reviewed by other oceanography professors, and we published this at WCC, and the book has since been adopted by Maui College and Kailua High School. So that's a nice success story for us. Another book of Hawaiian art. This was our latest Pueo, our literary and art journal at Windward. And when the pandemic was coming in January, I kind of said, well, we better get this out fast, or we're not going to get it out at all. So I kind of, cracked the whip and got them to get this out. And so the books just came in a few weeks ago. And I was so intent on getting the books published, I realized that there's no way for me to distribute them. So they're just sitting in boxes in my office. And this was the book. If I had one more week, I would have been able to get this one out with Pueo Press, another book of Hawaiian art. Okay, so that's kind of who I am and what I do relative to book publishing. If you have a book that you want to publish, there's there's a lot of ways to do it. Or if you just have a story you want to publish, there's various ways to do it. One of the first things I would do if I were you is get a copy of this book here, the Novel and Short Story Writers Market. This is what you would do if you wanted to pursue traditional publication. In here are publishers of short stories. They say the kind of content they're looking for. They'll tell you how many submissions they get every year, what their guidelines are, and so forth. So, excuse me, you can send out stories to get published here and there. It also has lists of agents and the kind of work that they generally represent, lists of publishers. So if you wanted to go the traditional route to publication, this book is a great start. Generally, if you have a short story, you contact publishers directly. These would be magazines, literary journals, and so forth. And if you have something longer, like a memoir or a novel, then the route would be to query an agent. And then if the agent accepts your work, they'll send it to publishers. With a novel, I know a lot of writers might think, oh, well, just you read my novel and tell me if you like it. But an agent or a publisher isn't going to say that. They're going to say, send me a summary, or send me a chapter by chapter summary. And in most cases, they're going to ask you, the author, for a marketing plan. And you're saying, wait a minute, I write stories. How do I know how to market it? Well, you can look these things up. There's various websites for how to market a book, but that's kind of what you're up against in the traditional publishing world. They don't just want to read your book and decide it. They want to see a brief summary, and they want to know how your book is going to make money. So you have to be prepared with those answers. Okay, so let's say you want to publish your own story. You want to publish your own book. There's a really quick and easy way to do this via Kindle. And if you want to do a print book, you can do that also through Kindle Direct Publishing. And then you would also want to do it through a print-on-demand distributor so that it would go into bookstores. Generally, bookstores aren't going to buy from Amazon, so you don't want to just create a print book for Amazon. You're going to need to create one through a distributor such as Ingram Spark, and I'll cover that briefly in a minute. But what I want to do right now is to Kindle Direct Publishing. This is how to get a story or a book up on Amazon. Even if you have something as small as a 10-page short story, Amazon will let you put it up for sale. You'll get your own Amazon page, and then it's up to you as the marketer of that product to figure out how to sell it. So I'm going to show you how to do that right now. So if you see here, it says Kindle Direct Publishing. You would go there. If you already have an Amazon account, you would just log in with that. They're going to ask you for some preliminary financial information, before you can get to this page, because they want to know where to send royalty payments and so forth. But it's very simple. Just go to Kindle Direct Publishing and you'll see how to do that. And then you see here, it says create a new title. So let's say if all you had was a short story, say, hey, I'm just going to put this up for sale on Amazon. You would click here, Kindle ebook, which is what I did here. And so this is a novel I'm writing. It's called Flow. I didn't finish the novel, but I'm just going to throw it up because just to show you how how to do it. So I would, here it is here. I made a simple little cover, continue setup. So if you're just starting the book, you say you've written the book and you want to publish it, you'll get to this page. So that you click English. You see here, I put the book title. My name is the author. And then I have here a book description. So the description of my book, Flow, is a petty criminal seeks to destroy Trip City, a domed enclave of wealth and privilege in a world consumed by anarchy and decay. It's a love story. Keywords, dystopian, set categories. The categories I set was just general fiction. You click on that. This age range you don't need to worry about. And then you see here it says, I'm ready to release my book now. Hit save and continue. And it just waits for a few seconds. Then you get to this next page, digital rights management. It gives you an explanation of what that is. Here, basically, you would want to say yes so that people just can't share your stuff. Okay, so I've already uploaded my files just so that I can get through this quickly. Kindle Direct has a cover creator function. You can create a cover, but it doesn't make very good covers. So I just made one myself. The thing to keep in mind when designing a cover is they're very simple. Usually you have you have text to say who what the title is, who the author is, and you have an image, right? You don't want to get any busier than that. So you have to play around a little bit with Photoshop or something to get it to look nice. Or you find a friend who's pretty good with Photoshop. So I just made this simple cover last night for the story. I uploaded my manuscript, and you notice it says Flow KPF. So you can't just upload a Word file and expect it to create a digital ebook. What you need to do is type into Amazon Kindle Create. And what that is, it's just a simple software program that will create an ebook for you. So you download this software, Kindle Create. I have it right here. And then you go, and this, you watch how fast I can create a book here, right? So new project from file. I'll choose the file. And I have my story here or my novel. It's actually 3 chapters of a novel. I finished the 3rd chapter last night just so I could have, 3. So I'll just take this Word document and I'll open it in Kindle Create. It's going to create what's called a reflowable document, that KPF file. Continue. So there it is in its raw form. Here's my first chapter, Cain the Strange. So here's a few things that you would do. Front matter. You click that little X, create yourself a title page. Book title, it's Flow. My name. Publisher, so Loihi Press. And then if I have a little logo, where's my logo? There it is. I create my little Loihi Press logo. And I've created a title page for the book. What else do we have for front matter? You want a copyright page. You can put your name as the copyright owner. Year of publication, 2020. And then it gives you some boilerplate copyright stuff. So you want to look through that and, replace, this stuff with, your own data. Create page. Any other front matter you can see, you can create a dedication page, table of contents, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. I'll just, leave it with the title page and the copyright. Okay, so I go back to my ebook and I say, here's my chapter title. So you see here on the right says chapter title. It gives it some big letters. And then you see the third one down there says chapter first paragraph. It gives you a little drop cap. And then if I go to my, next chapter, I do the same thing. Give me a little drop cap. There we go. Chapter title, chapter first paragraph. And it gives you some, some style options up here, like themes. I don't know. Well, I'll click Cosmos, just see what it does differently. Get out of there. Okay. So here's my book: flow, title page, copyright page, and then the book, and it creates its own chapter breaks. If you want to see what it looks like on various devices, you can click the preview there. This is what the book would look like on a basic tablet. It's what it's going to look like on a phone, on a Kindle e-reader. With ebooks, the reader, if you've ever used one, is the one who decides the fonts, the spacing, and so forth. So you can't really control a lot of that. So you get a general idea, and you can manipulate this to see how the book looks. Okay, then I would simply go up here, and I would click Publish, and then it would give me that KPF file, which I would upload to the Kindle. So I'll go back to the Kindle. Where are we? Okay, so you can see I've uploaded the manuscript. I've uploaded my cover that I designed last night. Save and continue. I put my press there, Loihi Press. Okay, the pricing, all territories there. So you get a royalty choice here, 35% or 70%. Some people would say, well, I'll take the 70%, but if you take the 70%, I think you got to sell the book for a minimum of $2 and something. So I selected 35% so that I could sell this for 99 cents. Book lending, you can allow people to lend your book within there. And then it says, publish your Kindle ebook. Watch what happens. Okay, so it says it can take up to 72 hours for your title to be available for purchase on Amazon. Then it says start your paperback now. Usually, from what I've seen, if you're just publishing a story like this, it might be up within an hour. I'll check before we end this presentation to see if it shows up, but usually within an hour, that book will have its own Amazon page, and you can start selling it from there. What you don't want to do is use this Kindle Create to create print books. I would only use it to create an ebook. Okay, so we'll close that, and then we'll look on Amazon in a little bit. Okay, let me look up to my little outline here. Okay, so that's the quick and easy way to publish an ebook. If you want to publish a print book on your own, you want to use software such as InDesign. Let me pull that up here. Okay, so you can see here's the cover I designed in InDesign. Not the greatest cover in the world, but yeah, I needed something. Here's the cover I did for Bastards in the Wilderness. I got the image from, I think, Shutterstock. I paid 49 bucks for the obscene little kid there. And then I used some like layers so that the letters match the background. I think it's called a cutout. I've never been formally trained in Photoshop or InDesign. So a lot of the work that I do in there, I could never recreate. I'm just clicking buttons until something looks kind of cool. And then I say, I'm done. And then someone said, could you recreate that? Like, no, probably, probably not. Let me show you what the interior of a book looks like. Let's see. I think this is the interior of a book. Nope. Here we are. Okay, so this is just a simple design for a book. I keep everything simple. For me, when I look at the inside of a book, I don't want to be distracted by what's on the page. I want to be in the story, not on the page. So interior book design is it's just you're just making it as simple and as readable as possible. You see, I have generous inside margins, right? Because I don't want the reader to be bending a book and doing all sorts of contortions to try to read it. Generous margins on the outside so that their thumbs aren't covering letters, and then very simple headers, page number and title. And for this book, I said I'll just put everything at the top so that when you get to the bottom of the page, boom, you go to the next page. This takes a little bit of learning to do this right, to use software like this. So while I could teach you how to do that ebook, in a matter of an hour, teaching you how to do a proper print book, it's a little bit harder. But what you're doing is you're creating this interior file, and then you're creating a cover file, which is front, back, and spine. And there's various rules for doing this. You have to keep a 0.125-inch bleed, around for the printer, and you need another 0.125 from the margin for any text items. You kind of learn these through trial and error. Amazon and other places will, if you type in, hey, I have this many pages, it'll give you a spine width, right? So you just create 2 columns and you get these little guidelines. I don't want to go too much detail into this right now because, as I said, this would take me like over the course of 2 semesters to teach how to go through the whole process of designing an interior and a cover. But once you have that, you're creating just PDF files for a printer. So then you would go back, let's say, once you do this, you would go back to Kindle here, and then you would, click paperback, and you would just do the same thing as I did for that ebook. You see, it says it's in review, so it'll tell me in a bit when it's published. But you would give that the paperback thing. You would give them your cover file and your interior file, and again, within a day, that book's going to be up for sale. So that gets you in the Amazon universe. But you also want your book to be available in stores. And books are, as I said, aren't going to be bookstores aren't going to buy from Amazon. The margin for making any money simply isn't there. They're going to buy from legitimate distributors. One of those distributors is Ingram. Every bookstore out there has an Ingram account. The only thing different between doing what you're doing for Ingram and for Amazon is they're going to charge you like, $60 to do it with Ingram, but it's the same process. You see where it says publish a book, you click get started, you enter the same exact information, and then when you get to the file page, you give them the same files that you use to create the ebook for, the print book for Amazon. One thing to keep in mind is you don't want to buy the ISBN, which is, the little number that identifies the book. You don't need it for ebooks, but if you're doing a print book, don't buy the ISBN from Amazon and then try to publish it with that um, same ISBN on Ingram. It'll get kicked back. What you want to do is go to this company called Bowker. And then you can buy either a single ISBN number, or if you are starting your own publishing company, you might buy like 10 of them. They'll be cheaper. So you would buy that barcode and then put that in the book yourself for both Kindle. It'll be the same barcode, the same ISBN for the Amazon and for Ingram Spark in that case, because it's your own ISBN. And then Bowker will also try to sell you the barcode, but you don't need to buy that, because if you give Ingram and you give Amazon that ISBN number, they'll automatically generate the barcode. And you just want to make sure you leave that space on the back cover in the bottom right so that they can insert it in there. Okay, so that's kind of a real quick and dirty lesson in book publishing, is as much as I could try to tell you in an hour's time. But the other thing worth covering is the marketing of the book. You've written something, you want people to read it. So how do you reach them? How do you generate an audience? Well, the first thing you want to keep in mind is, what are the expectations of the market? If you're someone like me who writes weird off the wall stuff, like my last two books, Pacifica and Bastards in the Wilderness, which I really enjoyed writing, and I like them very much, but I recognize there's really not a large audience for that. So if writing is something you want to do to make money, you have to kind of follow the market. What is selling, right? Are murder mysteries selling right now? Well, if they are, then that's what you would probably write if you were, a for-profit kind of writer. Same thing with nonfiction. You might think, oh, I've lived this wonderful, interesting life, I'm going to write about it. But what you'll find is that if you're not a particularly famous person, there's probably not going to be a lot of people interested in your memoir. But that said, there are things you can do to build an audience, for your book. One is entering it in contests. There's several of them out there. You simply Google them. If you get the Writers Market, that book, it'll tell you a whole bunch of contests that you can apply to. You can send your book to various newspapers, publications, blogs, podcasts, anyone who you think might be interested in whatever genre you're writing, to see if they'll review it. You take advantage of social media. You get the book out there on Twitter, on Instagram, on Facebook. And you recognize that there's a fine line between being saying, hey, I have this book, you might like to read it, and then being a kind of pushy salesperson. For me, the money side of it is not something that really interests me that much. With Loihi Press, I let the authors have the entirety of the royalties from the the books. I don't make any money with it whatsoever. And the same thing with Pueo Press. I'm running it through the school, and the authors are students, and most of the students are like older students, retired people that have books they want to write. But again, they get all the proceeds from that. But some of the books that I pub, they've made money. They've had some success. It's just about, sometimes it's just footwork. Mark Penick's novel Hawaii. Um, he physically went around to, to bookstores. When he was in the airport, he tracked down, who the owner of those stores is, and he found that person and got him to put his novel in the airport, where it sold a lot of books. You can also offer to do readings and presentations. You see me here. I'm giving you a presentation on independent book publishing, but I snuck in the fact that I wrote some books. I'm not going to say go out and buy them, but you do little things just to keep the work present. I was scheduled to do a presentation at the Women's Writers Conference in Honolulu this summer, but of course it was canceled by the virus, and my marketing plan for my Bastards in the Wilderness book kind of just went out the window. So all I've really done with it so far is I've entered it in some contests, which I'm waiting to see if it gets any traction. But for me as a writer, I'm a much better writer, I think, than a businessman, because once I finished that book, I just started writing the next one. That book, Flow, that I got, 3 chapters written so far. So that's the now it's publishing. You see. So let me see if I go to the Amazon itself.
Quick question, Robert.
Yeah.
Marfua, I'm sorry if I said your name wrong. She's wondering about scientific publishing. Is there any avenues that maybe you're familiar with?
You mean like writing like a textbook?
No. Hold on. Let me, Marfua, did you want to ask your question? And please correct how I said your name. You can unmute yourself.
Thank you. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you and I can see you.
Yeah, thank you. Great webinar. Very helpful. So my question was, what if we want to publish scientific work, like theories, equations, like, for example, imagine Albert Einstein.
Yeah, you could do everything that I just said. You could do that, right? You create your own content. You could publish it as an ebook. You could publish it as a print book. I think with science writing, one of the things you want to be sure of is that you have some peer review of it,
yes.
and you have someone who is knowledgeable to write a foreword, for the book. But it's a lot of the same thing. Who's the audience for it? How can you reach it? Right? You put copies in the mailboxes of college professors who might want to use a book like that. But for a print book, you're also up against, you have to learn how to make a print book using book design software, right? That's where a lot of people get stuck. So you have to either learn it yourself or find somebody who knows how to do that, or you go the traditional publishing route, like who publishes those kinds of science books, right? What are comparable books? What books are comparable to the one you're writing, and who's publishing them? Contact those publishers.
Thank you. So now I have like follow-up question. Can I ask? So after peer review and all these, sometimes it's very helpful if we have co-author, like friends, like when Darwin submits his theory of natural selection, he needs 2 authors to support his new idea.
Exactly.
So like, is it better to have like a manager or like a personal assistant, or is it better to make co-author your professor? I mean, like a marketing scale in long term. That is one question. And
so if you look at this textbook, this oceanography textbook, it was primarily written by Michelle Smith, who's a lecturer at Windward Community College. But you notice there's you can see 3 authors here who have vastly more experience than Michelle. So these were kind of her peer reviewers who also contributed, bits of information for the book. So when they peer reviewed it, they said, well, change this, change that. You can add this, you can add that, that kind of stuff. So she did put them on the book as co-authors because it does increase the credibility and of course how authoritative the book is. So that's exactly what she did.
Okay, thank you. And
Sure.
this is probably the last question.
Yeah.
Thank you for your time. The software you mentioned and all these like Amazon Kindle and all other accounts you have shown, is it similar in Windows and Apple? I'm noticing you're using Apple. I don't.
Yeah.
I never. Apple,
Yeah,
right?
you can download Kindle Create for Apple, or you can download it for PC. You can download InDesign.
Sorry, for Windows, not for Apple.
Yeah, you can do it for Windows.
Same.
It gives you the option, like, are you going to Windows or are you working with a Mac? And you can download InDesign, Kindle Create, Photoshop, all those things depending on whatever computer you have.
And then I have to probably pay, right? It requires
Yeah,
payment.
that's the
Okay.
well, for us, like I get it through the college, for Pueo Press. So that doesn't cost me anything to put out Michelle's book because I use it as part of a
Sorry,
class.
which press?
Pueo Press.
Oh yeah, they're the one who donates books at UH Manoa, or Puo.
Pueo. It's a kind of native owl. Pueo Press.
Oh, okay.
So
Okay.
this is
Thank
our logo right here, Pueo Press.
you. Is this yours? I mean, you work with them, or are you?
Yeah, I started it at Windward Community College. And so the criteria for being published with Pueo Press is that you have to take our creative media or English 280 book production class, because it does take time and effort to create a print book.
Okay.
So that's the caveat for us, is you have to be in the class to get that consideration.
Maybe I will contact with you later because I don't want to take too much time now. Can I contact with you? I mean,
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you.
You want my email address?
Yes, please.
barclay@hawaii.edu. Does anyone else have questions?
No. So if I wanted to write hi, Robert.
Hey.
If I wanted to write a textbook, I could probably go through doing it like Michelle.
Yeah, exactly. And because you're faculty, I don't think it costs you anything, right, to take a class?
I don't think so. Right.
Yeah. So you would just register for the class and you just have to come in, and it gets a little chaotic. Like last year we published, we were publishing 5, we ended up publishing 4. But, I got 4 authors working on 4 different computers and the software is all new. So I'm just sort of bouncing around like an electron, like everyone's hands going up. We get there and we get the books out.
Well, what if the content is already created?
Well, yeah, then that makes it easier. In fact, I would suggest before you take the class that you do create the content, because the class is in producing the book. It's not a class, and it's not like a writing workshop.
Writing, right? Okay. So it just pretty much teaches formatting, what kind of like an in-depth of what you just went over.
Exactly. Like how do you take those words you've got in your computer and turn them into a physical book?
Yeah, I can see how Adobe InDesign is. It takes some time.
Yeah, it does. It's not hard. It's just got 1,000 things, and you just have to learn, what each little button does. And that's how I learned it. Like you click buttons and see what happens.
Okay, thank you.
Sure.
I have a quick question about InDesign.
Yeah.
You mentioned that there was a faculty version. Is there a student version? Because you know how like with Word, we have, as a student, we have a discount.
Yeah.
Is there a similar
right. So the way InDesign works, you used to be able to just buy the program, right? And which worked great for me because I didn't need to update it every year. But now you can't do that. You actually have to buy the entire Adobe Creative Cloud.
How much?
And it's an annual subscription. I'm not sure what it is, but I know they do have an academic discount.
Okay, all right. And so when you do purchase that, or if you do purchase that, can you convert, like say you wrote your book on Microsoft Word,
Mhm.
is it really easy navigation to upload it into the Adobe software?
Yeah, really.
Okay.
It's called a place function. So you're going to place those words. You're going to create your template first, right? You're going to set up all your margins and your book size and everything. And once you have that set, then you're going to place in your Word doc, and it'll just splash, propagate right through.
Okay, great. Thanks.
Sure.
Very helpful. Good thing I checked my email.
I have a quick question. If I wanted to like do my own illustrations, is that possible to do that through InDesign, or would I have to use a different program?
What do you use now?
I don't use anything. I just draw by hand, but like
Yeah, so
yeah.
what I would do if you like drawing by hand is you just scan it, right?
Okay.
And you create a JPEG or a PNG of that. If you're writing a book in color, you want to know the difference between RGB and CMYK color space, because your book will get rejected if you use RGB color space, but you can use programs like Photoshop that'll just convert RGB to CMYK. Another thing you could do that I didn't quite mention, let's say you have this beautiful like art book, right? And you don't want to have it published in a reflowable way where the images and the words are controlled by the reader, right? It lays out, really funny. So what you can do is create what's called a print replica ebook. So if I go to Kindle Create, it gives you that option, right? See where it says textbooks, travel guides, and cookbooks, and you notice that this says choose file PDF, right? So what you would have already done is created a book in something like InDesign, where you have your words connected to your images exactly the way you want it, and then it'll upload what's called a print replica ebook.
Thank you.
Sure.
Robert, would a graphic novel also be something that could be created with this textbooks, travel guides, cookbooks?
Oh, absolutely, yeah. And that's what you would use to do it, particularly if it's in color, because it's different paper that you're going to be doing, right? And so you would be creating this as the ebook print replica, but your the book you're going to use for Ingram and for Amazon would be something you'd create in InDesign and create a PDF, from that, just like you would create any other book, right? And so it's a little trickier in that you're going to upload text, whereas like if it's a novel, I can place the text and it'll propagate through InDesign in one step. But if you're using a lot of images, it's like, okay, I got to put a little text, right? And then I'm going to place an image next to it. So it's a little bit more involved. It's what we do when we create our literary and art journal, the Pueo. We'll import each story one at a time and, pair them up with, various works of art. So it's story, then import the art. So it's a little bit more time consuming, but yeah, graphic novel, easy.
Awesome, thank you. And I did have one more question. How about translation? Wanted to have it translated into another language.
Yeah, all you would do is you would need someone who could translate it, right?
You'd need to find a translator, okay.
Yes, okay. I don't know if there's a program, and if there is, it probably doesn't work well, where you could just change the language. It would probably do a horrible job. But so you would need somebody to actually type out translation just, for accuracy.
Okay, I have one more question. And then I noticed on the back of your novel, you have, your little reviews from people who are essentially endorsing your work. And I wonder what's the best way to go about getting those, and who would you seek out to provide those for?
So the technical term for those are blurbs. They call them blurbs. So it's just a matter of the first thing you do is like, who do I know, right? And so Chris McKinney is someone who I went to college with, who's a very successful local writer. So it's like, okay, I'm going to hit up Chris. And then Mark Panic, who's a pretty good writer, I hit him up. For other books that I published, such as The Idea Man, Josh Green, at the time, I don't have a picture of the back right now, but at the time, Ed Case was one of the Congress people for Hawaii, and Josh was a state senator. So I said, hey, do you know Ed Case? He goes, oh yeah, he's a friend of mine. So we'll get him to blurb, your book. So if you look at the back of this book, Ed Case is doing that. I also met a woman. She wrote her name escapes me for the moment. She wrote a very successful book called Lottery. Patricia, I forget her name, but I had met her at a writing conference a couple days before I was finishing this book. And so I just hit her up. I said, hey, would you mind? Because she writes young adult fiction. So I hit her up. I'm working with a guy right now who's writing a book of short stories that are written in Pidgin. And I know Lee Tonauchi from college. So when that book gets done, I'm going to hit up Lee. So it's just a matter of like milking your contacts to see who's out there for science books. Find the most knowledgeable science people you can find. To review it.
Thank you.
Sure.
Hi, Robert.
Yeah.
How about intellectual property? For example, how long does it take if it's in Hawaii?
Mm-hmm.
And then second question would be, what if I want to publish in my own native language,
Mm-hmm.
which is Bengali?
Yeah.
And how does publishing company deal with that?
Well, you would look at what publishing companies are in that country. I would say if you want to do it yourself, you look on Amazon, there are books written in French. There's probably books written in Bengali. It's just a matter of you as the author deciding what book you want to write, what language you want to write your book in. No one's going to stop you. But again, it's like, okay, now your audience is people who can understand that language. You just recognize, what that means, depending on, what language you use. That is the audience for that book. And what was your question about copyright or?
Yes, IP. So for the intellectual property. So do you have to think about it, like when you publish a book, like?
Well, for me, I write fiction, so no, because it's entirely coming from my imagination. So it's my intellectual property from the moment I write it down.
Okay. And then if it's memoir, for example, I have 10 diaries I would like to publish someday, but not now because everybody will make fun of me, but maybe after 5 years, then should I just send them the raw copy to the publisher's house?
No, they're going to want you to go through an agent first.
Agent, okay.
You would want to try to find an agent. So you would find that writer's market book. And so, okay, what are the agents for memoirs, right? And they're going to ask you, give me a summary, right? And then if they like your summary, they might say, send me the first 50 pages. If they like the first pages, they'll say, send me the rest. And then they'll say, we like this, but our audience wants more of this other thing. So could you rewrite it? Right?
Oh, okay. Oh, yeah, sure.
It's a business. So if you do it independently, you have full control. But as soon as you start working with agents and commercial publishers, they want to be able to control that content to sell as many books as possible.
And there are agents in Hawaii, right? I mean, it's a common process. Or
I know Roger Jelinek is an agent in Hawaii. He was an agent of mine for a while. Other than that,
Roger who? Sorry?
Jelinek. I don't know if he still does agent work. He runs the Hawaii Book and Music Festival.
Oh, okay. But he can probably refer to someone.
I would say like your best bet would be get the writer's market, because they're going to tell you exactly what kinds of agents are selling memoirs.
Oh, okay. Thank you.
Sorry, I do have a list of questions that were submitted. So just really quick, along those same lines, you kind of said it though. And can you offer some pros and cons between self-publishing versus going with a publisher? And I
Mhm.
know you just mentioned content control,
Mhm.
but are there any other pros or cons going through um, self-publishing
Right.
or
So I think you tend to get a little bit more credibility for review, right? If I were to send my novel Bastards in the Wilderness to the New York Times book review, they're going to put it in the trash can, right? But if I got Random House to publish this book, they might look at it. So that's one of the pros of going with a commercial press. Um, the ability to publish a book from my house right now. It's not something exclusive to me. And so what you have is you have a lot of books out there that are independently published. And a lot of reviewers, newspapers, magazines, they won't even look at independently published books for reviews. So that's the downside of it. It's a little harder commercially to sell books that are independently published. But you can put them out much quicker. That's one of the benefits, right? If I sent this book to Random House and they decided to publish it, it might be 2 years before it came out. And they might not even, they might have been interested in it 2 years ago. And by the time it comes out, they're excited about something else. So they don't put very much marketing effort into it. So it's a very long process. But what I would suggest any writer do is build up publication and short publications in journals and magazines and so forth. Write little articles, write stories, and see if you can get those published so that that your name does get out there. Because when you do independently publish, you'll already have an audience for your work.
and then what do you see the future of book publishing? Do you see a trend in authors self-publishing, or do you see authors seeking the resources from larger publishers?
Yeah, I have no idea. I know more and more people are independently publishing books. It's created a kind of glut. Like if you go on Amazon and you're looking for a novel to read, the first thing's going to pop up are the people that have, paid money to Amazon to actively market the book. Meaning if I'm looking at a page on Amazon, you'll notice that it has a list of suggested books. And I actually tried to get them to do that for this book, Bastards in the Wilderness. I was going to pay them money to actively advertise the book, but they said that the cover was too profane, so they wouldn't do it. I was like, I don't know. I kind of took that as a badge of honor. It's like, are you kidding me?
Right.
But yeah. So yeah, pros and cons.
What so I know you mentioned so what advice would you give authors thinking about approaching a traditional publisher? Should there be something specifically that they should bring with them or send over? Is it possibly going through that agent from that book you mentioned, or
Yeah. So if you want to get books published, you need an agent, and you also need to understand the business. If you're not writing something that's marketable, no one is going to want to look at it. So like I've written this book, I wouldn't even bother trying to sell this to Random House or somebody. They're not gonna want it. It's too offbeat for them. So if you want to be published commercially, write books that will sell commercially. That's just the way it is. Sometimes you get lucky. Let's say this book, it just struck a nerve at the right time and in place. That can happen. So, spend a few months trying to sell it, commercially, just to see what happens. See if an agent will bite. See if if a publisher gets any interest in it. It's just time. It just takes more time with a commercial press.
cool. I have other questions, but they're more how do I say, literary in nature. Is that okay?
Yeah.
Have there ever been parts of an author's book, as you, the editor,
Uh-huh.
that just had to be cut, but the author was adamant that you just shouldn't make the change. How do you deal with situations, maybe coming from the author's side and then also maybe coming from the editor's side?
Yeah. So if somebody writes a book, the first thing you want to recognize as an editor is how much in love they are with their book, right? That's their baby. So if you go in there and you start criticizing their baby and in pointing out, change this and do that, you have to be, gentle in your persuasion, and you have to offer reasons. In this book, The Last Leg Woman, one of the things I pointed out to the author is that you are identifying the race of non-white characters, but you're not identifying the race of white authors, right? So if you're not going to say there was a white man on the street corner, but you are going to say there was a black man on the street corner, you should probably delete those racial references or find a different way to describe that character. And I'm, the way I explain is I'm not trying to say you're a racist. I'm saying that's how that would be perceived. If you only identify the nationality or the race of non-white characters, that can be an issue. So we went through and fixed some of that with that book. This book, I had a lot of suggestions just for how to format it, to change section titles. It was well received. This book was published, posthumously, so I didn't get to work with the author, but I had a conversation with him, shortly before he passed away, and we just kind of hammered out a plan, to knock about 50, 60 pages out of the book. So yeah, it's just about being, I'm an English teacher, so I can be fairly persuasive in backing up what I'm saying and what would make a story stronger. But yeah, so far I haven't had any, no one's beat me up over anything. So.
Just wait, no, I'm kidding. So I know you did discuss earlier self-publishing and advertising, especially coming to social media and other avenues like that. But the question, often with self-publishing, there is a fear of not selling books because of lack of advertising or interest because of the struggles of advertising. What would be the best and most effective way to garner sales and interest when self-publishing?
Getting your name and your book out there as widely as possible. If you're writing science fiction, you should be going to Facebook pages that, Facebook groups, whatever, where people like science fiction, right? Who's your audience? I mean, that's the first thing that an agent or a publisher is going to ask, like, who's the audience for this book? So you want to recognize who that audience is and find all the avenues you can to reach out to them. There's probably somebody out there, if you're writing science fiction, right? There's probably someone out there that does podcasts for science fiction. Find out who those podcasters are. Shoot them an email. Say, hey, would you like to, have me on for your podcast? I wrote this science fiction book. Rejection is part of the business. So they might say no, but, keep trying, keep asking people. It's just a matter of exposure. No one is going to buy a book if they don't know it exists. So, and you can pay for advertising. Like if you don't have this cover, I don't think Amazon would find offensive. So I could probably drop some money and it would get advertised. But yeah, it's exposure. Get it out there. Get it reviewed. Get it talked about. Get that image of the cover in as many places as you can. Make T-shirts, with your book cover on it everywhere you go. Right? You be creative. And I've done that. I've put my book covers on T-shirts.
So yeah, thank you, Robert, for taking the time to talk to everybody today. We really, really appreciate it. Thank you.
Oh, I appreciate you too. Thanks for coming.